Hey, it's Michelle Nyong'o here with Stride Wellness, and I'm coming at you on today, which is Wednesday, for another segment of Wellness Wednesday. And I got a lot of positive feedback last week on the segment I did on resolutions, gratitude, and goals. So that got a little fire in my belly to bring you more great content. And it also gave me an idea. So, what I did, I've been trying to create a freebie every week. So, a free resource or something that people can do, they can watch, they can participate in. Sometimes it's a PDF, sometimes it's a guideline, a blueprint, whatever it happens to be. I'm trying to give out one freebie a week. And I thought, well, it would be great to give something a little bit more valuable, which is a webinar. So I'm going to give a free webinar, and it's going to be an extension on last week's Wellness Wednesday. So I did one on gratitude, resolutions, and goals. And I went through SMART goals and I created a PDF, and people downloaded that and then were able to set their SMART goals for the new year. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to create a webinar. And the reason I decided to do it as a webinar is instead of a Facebook Live is that it's a tiny bit longer. And that way I can actually share my screen and some resources with you directly on the webinar, and go through a short presentation. Wouldn't be longer than 45 minutes. It could be less, but it's just more interactive and similar to a Facebook Live. It's done with me live, and there's a chat function, but the difference is that it's not on Facebook. It's just on a separate system. So it's like a booster pack for the goal setting that I did last Wednesday. So if you watched last Wednesday and you thought, whoa, I'd really like to go a little bit deeper into that, please join me. If you didn't, that's okay. You can watch the other Wellness Wednesday beforehand or not, but you can just head over to my website, and it's www.stridewellness.com/willpower. So it's for all of those people who have been setting goals. You may be noticing around the 10 to 14 days following a goal that there can be some let off, and people are really interested in, okay, how is it that I can use my willpower to get through this goal setting that I'm doing. So I wanted to speak to that about harnessing your willpower to get the most out of your goals. Hey, Danielle, thanks for joining. I was just saying that if anybody wants to join, the freebie for this week is a webinar, and it's going to be on Friday at 12 o'clock. I record my webinars. It's always best to watch them live because they're more interactive and you can participate in the chat. But if you're not able to watch it live, if you sign up, you can get the replay sent to you, and it'll be available online afterwards. So you do need to sign up at www.stridewellness.org/willpower. So that'll be up on my website. It should be up there shortly. All right. So let's get started on today's topic. And today's topic is how to get the most out of your day. So are you ready? Let's dive in. Okay. If you feel like there aren't enough hours in the day, or you seem to have so many things on the go, or if you feel like it takes forever to get through your to-do list, this is a Wellness Wednesday for you. Does any of that ring true for you? If yes, then let's dive into the 2 areas of your life that we can work on. So area number 1 is called cognitive load. And that's just a fancy schmancy way of saying how much your brain can handle in a day before it frazzles. And it's said that our brains can make about 250 decisions a day before it starts to really struggle to do things well. And now that includes small decisions like what we have for breakfast, what we're going to wear. So once we've made all of these small decisions, our cognitive ability to make more important decisions later on in the day actually becomes diminished. And you might feel like you're in a fog. And just that the decisions get harder as the day passes. So have you ever had a long day and you're totally spent from work, and then your kids ask you, what are we having for dinner? And you want to crumble to the ground? Or you look at them blankly and you can't make a decision? Those are real world examples of getting overloaded mentally. So how do we overcome this? I'm going to give you a few tips. Tip number 1 is to organize and plan ahead of time. It allows for some of that mental strain to be offset into a calendar or day planner, and it will reduce the decisions you need to make later on. So perhaps on a Sunday, you set out your schedule and done some meal planning. Even if you don't make the meal, but you set out what it is that you're going to eat and you've bought the groceries. On Wednesday, when it's time to make dinner, there's no guessing. There's no decision making. It's just following what it is that you have planned out. And that will help reduce your cognitive load. So doing that planning ahead of time is super beneficial. Tip number 2 is scan your week on Sunday night. Check to see if there's anything you need to do, such as maybe you need to ask for help from somebody, like rides for kids or picking something up or just an organizational thing. And also look to see if there's any steps that you need to take for anything that you've planned out. So for example, my son Josh has skating coming up. So on a Sunday night, I can make sure that his permission slip is signed. But not only that, he needs skates. So I'm going to need to borrow those from somebody. So instead of thinking about it for the whole week, I can just add, contact so-and-so to borrow skates and just put that on the to-do list for Monday. And then I can let it go. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to plan for it. I've already put it down into the schedule and I can just release it from there on. Each night, you can just quickly look over your schedule and have the people in your family and your friends encouraged to look over the schedule with you. And then that way they know what needs to be done the following day as well. So this can be great if you have a large calendar that you can put up so your whole family can see it, or if you have an app that you can share with all of the people in your family or your whether it's just a partner or whether it's roommates, other people who are going to be involved. That way, the planning can fall onto them too. So especially as women, it's said that cognitive load is typically another job that women have to take on, and it can be quite overbearing. So for me, I just say to the kids, hey, you have soccer tomorrow. They know then that they have to pack their soccer bags, they have to pack extra snacks, and then I'll be picking them up after school. And so there's no me having to text them to say, hey, how are you getting there? Or do I need to pick anybody else up? Or what time should I be there? There's no decision making. It's all preset, and they've taken on some of the cognitive load for themselves. I mean, they are older, but kids of many ages are able to do that, especially the night before something. They can just get it done, and then you don't have to worry about it the next day. Now, tip number 3 is huge, and it's just one word: routine. When we do things over and over and over again, it becomes a routine and we don't think about it. So get up at the same time every day. Have your coffee, eat your breakfast, exercise, shower, whatever it is that you do. If you can do it every day the same way, it takes the decision making out of it. It is just something that we do. The routine is there. And really, having a toast or a smoothie doesn't matter. Just pick one. And then you can carry that out. You might have something planned out for the week where you're saying, okay, I'm going to have every day this week, I'm going to have a smoothie, or every day this week, I'm going to have yogurt and fruit, or I'm going to have toast. You stick to it. And some people are like, well, that gets boring. And the thing is that, well, it's okay to switch it up. But if you do the same thing all the time, it actually allows for a more enjoyable day. And routines are not just for the morning. Routines are great for bed. That's why we have bedtime routines with our kids. It makes things more expected, but routine is comforting to people. You can have a routine, at the end of the night, routine for when you get home from work, and routine while you're at work. For example, when you get to work, every day you might want to spend the first hour checking voicemails and checking emails. And once you're done that, then you can move on to, say, a daily meeting that you're going to have, and then you're going to work with clients for the rest of the day. And the thing is that if you can stick to that routine will allow people around you to know, okay, at 9 o'clock, we know that Danielle's going to be checking emails. They know where to find you and they can contact you if they do. It's easier on those around you, but it's also easier on you because it's preset. For me, I have certain things like business meetings that I have where I potentially need to contact people regarding my podcast or my blog. I don't do those on any day other than Friday. So if people have to do them on other days, then it just doesn't work for me. I have preset that Fridays are the day that I do that. And then I do other things on other days and they're just set that way. And that way I don't have to think about it. When people say, oh, can you do this? Nope, can't put it. Sorry, my calendar's full. And so when we can organize, it's especially great if we have control over our own schedule. But if we don't, really trying to put as much routine in as possible will help greatly benefit your day. So let me recap. In the first area to getting the most out of your day is to reduce your cognitive load. And you can do this by creating a schedule, planning, organizing for the week, and sharing it with your family, spouse, roommates, whoever happens to be, in your living space if you do have people in your living space. And then create routine in as many places as possible. Okay, are you with me still? We're going to go to the second area, and that is to get more out of your day is to increase productivity. When we don't get what we want done, it typically follows us around for the remainder of the day. The more we can get done and the faster we can do it, the more time for downtime or a break we can have. Typically, if we have deadlines that we need to make, if we don't meet them, that means that they just get added to the next day and added and things build up. So if we can be productive, we typically feel better about ourselves. But not only that, that means that we have more time to do the things that we enjoy. So tip number 1 is stop multitasking. I hate to break it to you, but multitasking isn't a good idea. Okay, when I go for a walk, or when I do the dishes, or when I am driving, or when I'm doing, kind of something mundane, lots of times I will throw my earbuds in and I'll listen to a podcast on how to create a website or how to better coach a team. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm also not talking about things like, going to your kids' activities or going to doctor's office and bringing a book and reading it. That's not multitasking in the sense that I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is that when you're trying to plan your child's birthday party or your spouse's birthday party, and at the same time also trying to answer work emails, or when you're trying to finish up a essay for school and you're also watching a movie. It's a fallacy that we can do 2 things at one time, especially when those things take a lot of mental, or intellectual focus. So you can't divide your attention. It's as soon as you start to do a second thing, you're taking something away from the first thing. And as a result, it will take you longer to do the first thing. And a lot of people think, well, but I'm doing 2 things at once. You actually will complete things quicker if you go to one thing, complete it fully, take a tiny bit of a break, and go back and do the second thing. So if you can do them separately, you'll actually get them done quicker. So I'll just give you an example. Have you ever been driving and, like me, you get lost and you tell the kids to turn down the stereo so that you can see better? The reason that is because when our brains are taking in information, doesn't matter what kind they are, whether they're auditory, whether they're visual, your brain takes them in and needs to attend to them. And so as a result, it prioritizes. So if something's really loud, it can be hard to see something because your brain is focusing on what you're hearing. That makes me sound odd, but It's just the truth. You can only attend to a few things. You only attend to one thing fully at a time. So that goes to working, and that goes to stuff that you do at home. It goes to, if your kid's talking to you and you're checking your email, it's all of a sudden you're not hearing what they're saying. You can't attend to two things at the same time. So separate them, do one thing, and then do another. It will also help us feel less frazzled. The more focus you can give something, you can get into that zone. And actually that zone, which can be thought of as presence, is a way to find mindfulness, and mindfulness helps us to relax. So if you can get going on one thing, give it your full attention for a shorter amount of time, you'll finish it quicker, but you'll actually enjoy it more. And so that can not only help with our ability to be more productive, but it also leads to us being more relaxed and more happy. Going back and forth, switching all the time from one thing to the other, trying to do two things at one time is stressful, and our brains are just not meant to do it that way. So really look for that focus, look to try and get in that zone, and you'll complete things much faster. Okay, tip number 2 is put a halt to context switching. Context switching is when you go from one thing to another and back. So it's it's a little bit similar to multitasking, but you're not trying to do two things at once. It's switching from one thing to the other. So you might be doing this when you're, say, composing an email, and then your phone dings and you're like, "Ooh, someone has a question about that jacket I have on Kijiji." And then you change your train of thought to another app or technological device, and then you respond to it, and then you go back to what you were doing before. That's called context switching. Firstly, I am awful about this. I'm so terrible about context switching. But secondly, it's a productivity and happiness killer. It's said that we lose approximately 20 minutes out of every hour because of context switching. I know that ding or red notification can be super enticing, but steer clear of it. It's just not worth it. So what I've started to do is I've disabled my notifications. Another trick that's been super helpful is I have an iPhone and I can star certain contacts, and when I put my phone on privacy mode or the mode where I just don't get any notifications, if I get a text or a phone call from those people in those contacts, it will actually come through. So that way I don't have to be fearful of missing an emergency call from my kid's school or an important text from my children or my spouse. I know that it'll come through. Everybody else, it's like as if they don't exist. Sorry, people, but I can attend to it when I have a break. But going back and forth makes a huge difference. And secondly, I've deleted many of my apps off of my phone, and that just doesn't, I just don't see those notifications unless I go on and search them through, my web browser, or I go onto my computer. And it just is one more step to keeping me a little bit more self-disciplined. So context switching is a bad idea. Tip number 3. So remember before when I said that I was going to kind of come back and go deeper onto the routine? So here's what I meant. If you can allocate a certain amount of time every day at the beginning and end of your workday to attend to voicemails, phone calls, and emails, and not touch them for the rest of the day, you will avoid context switching more naturally. And then you can check your text messages, your personal ones, during breaks and at lunch if you want. But if you attend to them when you receive them, you'll be context switching all day and you'll be less productive. And for people who don't work hourly, but on projects, everything will just take longer to get done. So I found this super helpful. I get my voicemails and my emails down to 0 at the beginning of the day. And it doesn't matter who emails me or who phones me. If it's not pre-planned, I don't answer it. And then that way, when they leave the voicemail, I can attend to it before my workday is done. And it's a little bit different because I work from home and just how my job works. But if you don't have to constantly attend to emails, unless they're super important, if that's your job where you're just you answer emails and you answer voicemails all day, then that is, go ahead. That's great. That's part of your job. But for me, that's a portion of my job. It's a part of my job that I like. And so I go to it often, and it just leads to procrastination, and it leads to ways to, okay, I'm going to avoid this because I'm going to go do something that I like, which is answer the email. So I just say, okay, I'm going to answer the emails for the first hour of the day, and then I don't touch them again till later on. I've heard of this from a few social workers and some nurses who do who work in jobs where they do their notes at the beginning, their case notes. They'll answer their emails, they'll answer their voicemails, and they'll attend to them. And then they'll go to their case notes and work through that. And then they leave them. Even if they're not finished them, they leave them after that hour. And then they go back at the end of the day and maybe do another hour. What doesn't get done in those 2 hours falls to the next day. But they don't spend all of that time because there's other things in the day that they need to do. So that's one way that you can avoid multitasking. And another way that you can avoid context switching is just to deal with those things and then put them aside and then move on to whatever else that you have scheduled. So it was a lot of information. Basically, it was that we want to really reduce our cognitive load, and we can do that by planning, organizing, and implementing routine. And then we want to make sure that we are dealing with an increased amount of productivity, and that we can do that by avoiding multitasking, stopping the context switching, and implementing a deeper routine into our work that allows us to engage in that routine and avoid those other missteps. So that's what I have for you today on this segment of Wellness Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining in. Again, if you are interested in diving a little bit deeper into last week's gratitude resolutions and goal setting, I do have a free webinar which will be taking place on Friday at 12 noon, and you can sign up at my website stridewellness.org/willpower. So I hope you're able to join me. That's it for this series, or this Wellness Wednesday. So take care, be well, and have a great rest of your week.